What's the name of the song? Where's it come from? How did this get started?
So the name of the song is called Sunday Afternoon, and the way it got started was Ryan was playing on his acoustic guitar and played a really just laid back, almost have this like 60s vibe, just cadence. And he started playing it, and we were listening to it. And one of our guitarists, Dave, he actually like, hey, let's just go ahead and record that. And so, as we always do in just our music making, we just started like, humming a melody over it and adding a little bit of this and add a little bit of guitar. And so that's the way it got formed, right? But Sunday Afternoon just is a song that is about a girl going through hard times, but she's putting that facade over, right? The face, right? And being in this kind of state of, I feel this certain way, but I'm going to not let the world know that I feel this certain way. But there's also a guy who can see that from afar and likes the girl, but wants to be involved in both her pain and in her happiness. And so I think being involved in her pain is what makes him happy, and I think is what's going to make her happy. So I messed that up, but it's funny. We have a whole bunch of songs where people are like, oh, like one of our songs, French Girls, right? People think, oh, maybe Joe was dating a French girl. No, I've never dated a French girl. I'm actually married, so I love my wife. Just want to give her a shout out. But with our songwriting, we like to put ourselves in a position of a different character. Some might say that's a little psychotic, but that's just how we work, right? We put ourselves in like, okay, how would this person feel? What is the song like? What does the song put us in as a place, time, an era, right? And so it's just like being in this imaginary world. And so when we're writing songs and we hear this tune hit, it's like, oh, this kind of makes me feel like it would feel to be in the 70s, or it makes me feel like it would feel like to be like, in Tron, right? Like in the future. So it's crazy. You haven't heard those yet, but but that's how we write music. Is we throw out ideas like, hey, that kind of makes me feel like this. It makes me feel like an old man in a pickup truck. This makes me feel like, in high school driving an old Mustang. And so that's how we write our music. Is we throw out ideas. We listen to those ideas, and then we pick the best one. And that's just how it goes.
Ryan, did you experiment with any new instrument styles or production techniques on this song?
Oh, did I? Yeah, so this song was written on an old Ibanez guitar that my dad got me like 16 years ago. And I wrote the part during lockdown and wasn't able to like really get to it as a band in the studio. Like we have like Joe said, we have all kinds of jams and ideas, but when we finally got into the studio, it was cool because I brought that Ibanez not really thinking that it would make the cut, because when you're in a studio like Orb, there's, I don't know, 20 plus guitars in that place. So they're like, okay, pick up the Taylor and then run through the chorus on the Taylor. They're like, nah, that's not it. Pick up the Gibson. And then I always will try and pick up what I bring. Because in the control room, you can't really see what the musician's playing all the time. So I start playing that Ibanez, that old $400 guitar. And they're like, what is that? I was like, that's the Ibanez. And so that actually got to make the song. And then it was really cool and kind of challenging because I was doing one takes. Yeah. Like 1 second to 4 minutes, 30 seconds, just straight through. Which is funny because when you're playing it, you're like, should I stop? Because the verse is done. But so did a whole take on the Ibanez acoustic, and then got to put a dobro on there. And for people listening, a dobro is I call it a metal acoustic guitar. So it gives it a metallic ring to it. And then tripled a 12 string on top of that. So that's where you get the full body of 3 different guitars on this song. It's kind of the backbone of the whole song, which is cool.
Joe, you were talking earlier about when you guys find a sound, it's something that gives you a feeling and reminds you of something. Were there any genres or specific influences that you had on this new song?
Yeah, there's a song that I played for everybody in the studio. It's like, this is what I want it to sound like. And it's Time of the Season by the Zombies, I believe. And so that was just the vibe I wanted to go for. We didn't get an organ, so that kind of bummed me out. But no, it didn't need an organ. But that's the vibe I wanted to go for. And the cool thing is that, like, kind of going off what Ryan was saying earlier, is that sometimes in art, it's the jankiest things we have. Not that the guitarist dad got him is janky, but it's sometimes the things that are the most expensive that you lose its feel for the actual song. And so I think it's just so cool that we're able to make music and art out of things that other people might think like, oh, you could get a better equipment for it, or you can get better this. But it's like, no, when you use what you have, that's when the art really speaks. And so, we were just trying to go for that old vintage feel. And it really came out like that.
So absolutely cool. Thank you for that. Ryan, tell me, what are you planning as far as a music video or other content to accompany this release?
Oh, yeah. So I've always wanted to do like an animation for one of our music videos. One of my favorite bands is Gorillaz, and they kind of own that market. But in getting quotes, it was like they charge by the second, right? So it's like a 4-minute video. It's like multiply that by their rate. So it's thousands of dollars to get an animation. But what's awesome is one of our really good friends from San Antonio, who we used to play shows with, he's in a band called Collective Dreams. Now he's doing stop motion music videos, and they go by Collective Motions. And so I sent him the song and I was like, hey, whatever you come up with, just go with that. So he's building the landscapes. The song mentions silhouettes against the moon and a hot air balloon. So he's literally getting that material and building these landscapes and going frame by frame and creating a narrative. And I've only seen like maybe 30 seconds total. And I'm kind of like, hey man, the release is June 1st. What are we doing? But I have a lot of confidence in that it's going to look really cool.
Have you guys previewed the song to anybody live or shared it with any fans for feedback? Joe?
Yeah, so we will be previewing it for fans on May 23rd at our show at Empire. But I have sent it to my mom, showed my wife, and a couple other music buddies. And I think there's different, trains of thought on what you should do with sharing songs, right? Because I know in the music industry, people are like, oh, it's been leaked, right? I probably listened to a lot of leaked albums on LimeWire, so FBI don't come get me. But with that being said, like in our band, we share it with other people just so we can get that feedback, because we want to see how does that make them feel, right? And so we've been able to show it to obviously family, but showing it to people that are trusted within our trust circle, our inner circle, and they've really enjoyed it. More, some more than others, but I'm really excited just for everybody to hear it.
So Ryan, you recently shared the story with me of the birth of a song and kind of everything that it takes to get a song from your head all the way to the point where you're getting masters. Tell me a little bit about when the concept of this song was created. How long ago was that? And then when and how did it finally come together?
Ooh, that's tough. Because it always varies. I think the easiest part for us is the ideas as they flow and introducing it to the band. And like, we're all talented on various instruments. So if I have even like a drum beat, I'll send to Joe, and then he'll come up with a bass line, and then he'll come up with the melody and the lyrics. And then Dave, he can just lay lead guitar on anything. Same with John. So I always feel like it's not hard for us to come up with music. I think the hard thing is like, okay, we recorded this demo, and I want to say this was in like 2021.
Yeah.
when we recorded the original demo. And then you go into the studio, you're like, well, we're going to work on this song and then release this song. So then you're focused on a different song and it kind of gets put on the back burner. But I guess the full process is like, all right, we make a demo at our old band house when we all lived together, and then go into the studio and record it like from scratch. And then that's always challenging because sometimes you go into the studio and you're like, okay, everything's professional, like we're using these really nice instruments, and then halfway through you're like, man, we kind of missed the vibe. Yeah. Like something happened to the vibe of that demo. So then you're trying to like search and get that back. So yeah, it's a process. And then whenever you finally like, we worked with a really good mixing engineer too, Drew. And then our, I guess he was a recording engineer. And then Victor is a mixing mastering. So we finally got what's called a walkout. That's like all the musicians are done. All the tracks are composed and ready to go. Then it goes to mixing, and then it goes to mastering, and then you just put it up on the internet and hope people click on it and listen to it. Yeah,
awesome. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Creative passion or creative energy comes and goes. And when you talked about the life of creating a song, again, getting it from your head all the way to the end of getting it up on the internet and hoping people click on it, how do you get your heart and your head back into a song that you may have started a year ago? How do you get back into that place, Joe? When you're working on a song with a band and it's, you guys came up with it months and months ago, and you've lived a life since then. You've slept.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. For me, it's just honestly listening to it again, because then I'm listening to it with fresh ears. Because usually when we're making the demo in the band house when we're living there, and we're just like listening to it over and over again. I'm the kind of musician that will listen to a song for 3 hours straight just because I'm like, this sounds so great. Oh, maybe we can do this idea. Maybe we can do this idea. And so sometimes it's actually beneficial for me to step away from a song and then hear it with new ears, because then I can think it's like a new melody can come to mind, or maybe something like a new lyric that comes to mind. Because I can't tell you how many times I've heard a song come out that we've put out on like Spotify or, just put it out on the web, right? And I'm like, man, I wish I would have put this harmony on that part. That would have been sick. Mm-hmm. Or Ryan he'll be like, he'll send me like, hey, in your lyrics you say this, like, is this what it means? But the way he for instance on Sunday afternoon, what was the lyric? It's like
feels in the scars that hurt.
Yeah,
but I thought you were saying feels in the scars that hurt, which is, I don't know. I was thinking about it. I was overthinking it because I'm like, that's really deep. Like feels in the scars. It's like a metaphor on a metaphor. Yeah.
Did not mean that, because I was putting like FILL, like that word, fill in the scars that hurt, and he's thinking FEEL, and I was just like mind blown because I was like, whoa, that's deep, but I didn't come up with that. It was just how he was interpreting it, and so I think that's the good part about stepping back from the song for a while. Now, the con of that, right? What's the bad part is that sometimes we can take a step back and then, 8 months later, we're finally like, all right, let's get back in the studio. And it's like, no, we need to probably, as musicians, we do need to be putting things out. But I think it's all worked out the way it's supposed to be. But it's finding that fine balance. But yeah, stepping back isn't a bad thing, but can't step back too long.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. Same question to you, Ryan. How do you get the beat back after it's been so long? How do you get your heart back into the same song that you may not have even heard for months?
I'm thinking like, I just love playing drums, so I don't even care. Like especially if it's I mostly go off the bass line. So if it's a bass line I haven't heard in a while, it's nice to take a step back and then just, I forget drum beats a lot of times. So I have like 1,000 voice memos, which is actually a good thing because I'm like, I got to come up with a new beat like on the spot. But also I was thinking about like, we've played shows for past 10 years. So like you're constantly playing the same songs. Mm-hmm. I mean, most of the time we switch up the set as much as we can. But if fans are coming out and they want to hear like Keep Smiling, Shiver and Crawl, we're putting those in the set list like every night. And I mean, I probably played those thousands and thousands of times. So what I'll do is I go rehearse by myself before we meet as a band. And I'm like, how can I like mix this up? Like just start adding more layers to this. You know, I always like, because drums are, it's like you should be using all your limbs, right? Like left foot, right hand, left hand. And so I'm like, I'm not doing anything with my left hand during this chorus. Maybe I can do like a percussive rhythm on the hi-hat or just something. So like switching it up there. And yeah.
Is a song ever done? Is it, how do you come to terms with the fact that you've created something that's static? And do you really do you change it over time?
That is such a great question.
That's a good question.
And I think that is a life lesson, right? I mean, we can look at people like Steve Jobs, right? And I'm pretty sure if you could bring him back from the grave, he would say, you ask him like, hey, is there something that you wanted to do before you died? He would say yes, like a million times. And so I think with that, it's the joy of showing people your art, but also it's a little bit of sadness that, man, if I could have just had 5 more months on this, maybe I could have got it just tweaked a little bit. But the thing is that you eventually have to put it out. And I think that's what is so cool about art is that you'll never, and this is like with any art form, right? You could probably go to a painter and I would be very surprised if a painter, whoever they are, said like, oh yeah, I was happy with that final piece. Like there's always one more shade you can put in it. There's always one more color that you thought like, oh, maybe I could have put this, but once it's done, it's done. And I think that's the beauty of it, because when you now you get to watch the joy or sometimes the critique of other people when they look at your art, right? And they listen to your art in our case. And so it's hard for artists, but it's also a good thing for us in growing and also cultivating a sense of humility, but also being happy with who you are. Because I think that speaks even deeper to like the human experience, is that you're never going to be perfect. You're just never going to be perfect at the end of the day, and you're eventually going to get old and wrinkly, and then it's like you're always growing into this sense of unperfection. But that's the beauty of it, and I think that's what people love. And like just finishing that out is that one of my favorite bands of all time was Nirvana. But now like I'm older and I listen to Nirvana, you can hear what people would think at like in today's music industry would think are like, oh, those were mistakes that were made. But because those mistakes were allowed to live in the albums, that's what makes them so great. And now they're just, people would, they would say they're classics. And so I don't know. I think it's a balancing thing, but it's a life lesson that I'm consistently learning.
Yeah.
Ryan, same question for you.
Yeah, I think I run into that a lot with like live performance, because we're playing it different. And like I was saying earlier, when you play a song 1,000 times, you're going to get so good at it. And it's like you start adding these new elements and like more challenging fills, and you're like, man, I wish I would have done that on the single. But yeah, that single, it's pressed. You're not going to go back in to Spotify and be like, hey, can I add this drum beat? But when Joe was talking about that, I was thinking about just perfectionism in art. And I think about our lead guitarist, Super Dave. And when we were moving, I pulled out a painting, like this beautiful painting of, I don't know what they are. I think they're like cherry trees or something. Like
who knows what he's doing?
I don't know. I thought it was beautiful, right? And so I pulled this painting out of the trash, and Dave's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm going to hang this in my new place. And it's still, to this day, hanging up in my place. So it's that perception of like, I don't know, like we're our own worst critic, right? But we're making music like for everyone. So people are going to interpret it and feel different emotions. But I think that happens to all artists. It's just like Dave was like, this painting sucks. It's trash. And then I'm like, this is freaking awesome. I'm going to put this up in my house. Like, yeah.
Awesome. How do you feel that your contribution to music has changed as you've changed as a person?
I think we're almost like in the same place, because we went through where we were just 4 friends picking up instruments and just making whatever came to mind, to getting signed by a management label and then getting signed by a record label, and then having so many different like influences and like record label from people that you can't really just say no to, right? You send a song and you're like, hey, we really like this song. And they're like, no, it needs to be 3.5 minutes and you need to cut that post chorus. We're like, no, that kind of makes the song. Well, like going through all that, which is, I'm so glad we did all that because we did some really cool things with the labels. But now being independent, we're kind of back in those, like, 10 years ago, like these kids just picking up instruments and making songs that we like, and then not even really checking like the length of the song or if this is going to be streamed on the radio or if this is licensable for a commercial. It's like, maybe just a select amount of people will listen to it, and that's okay.
Looking back on the 10 years, it's 10 years ago, and this for anybody, your definition of success changes, and your definition of what is going to bring you happiness changes. And like what Ryan was saying, is like, yeah, we were on top of the mountain when a record label signed us, but then you're in it for about 2 months and you're like, wait, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And so I think as you get older, you start to realize that actually the things that make you happy are spending time with your close bandmates, spending time with your family, and being able just to go to a studio and not be like, hey, is this song going to get 50 million views? It's like, hey, this song might get only 5,000 views and that's it. But are you okay and are you happy with what you did? Does it make you happy, right? Does that art make you happy? And I think that's the beautiful part about it. And I just, and this is probably more of a me getting older thing, but now I start to really appreciate, like, I'm not a big art person in terms of like painting and stuff, but I really appreciate Picasso because I think it's so crazy that when he died thinking like, oh, no one is going to know like my name, or no one's gonna appreciate my art, but he appreciated his own art. And now, if someone has Picasso in their house, you're like, oh wow, this person must be loaded, right? Because they have Picasso, and that's like a sign of success. But the actual person who did it, no one really talks about him and like his life and what he went through, and the fact that people didn't think he was even a good artist at that time. And so I have this like, sometimes it's like dream, and people might be like, well, that feels this kind of dark, Joe. But this dream, like, hey, I might, I'm going to pass away. I'm going to die one of these days, right? We all do. We kick the bucket. But it'd be kind of cool, in 100 years, some famous, director makes some new show or something, and they're just going through the archives of all the databases of music, and they come across Swimming with Bears, and they're like, what is this? We're going to use this whole thing, and someone else gets the money, right? Yeah. But I think that's just the cool part about it, is that something of you lives on, right? And so that to me is success. It's like, man, there might be a kid, again, 50 years from now might hear a band, and then that inspires them to write, and then that kid becomes the next, big thing, right? A band becomes the next big thing, and they're like, oh, Swimming Bears, that's our favorite band of all time. I might not ever hear about it, but just to think that, oh, I might be an inspiration for somebody else, to me, that's success, right? So.
What would have been the hard parts? What are the pains from the lessons?
Oh boy, let me think. Like maybe from touring.
I imagine there's some touring lows.
Dude, early on there was some big lows. Well, for a while, Joe and I worked at a Tex-Mex restaurant, so we were servers, and which was really cool when we were in town because you're making cash every night. But then we go on these like 40-day East Coast tours, and you find yourself in Providence, Rhode Island, and like I look over and Joe is putting another little hole in his belt, right? Like he's just trying to keep his pants up at this point. And then at each venue you're getting, usually you get a meal, you get like 6 drink tickets and a meal, and sometimes that's the payment. And so I would be so hungry. And then I'm like, dang, I'm about to go play an hour show. I'm going to be hungry again after that. So there's a lot that you just will never know about early bands that are touring, that are like, it's so challenging because you're just on the road driving, and you're like, man, I don't have any money for food, and then maybe you see like a bandmate going to the gas station, get a big bag of beef jerky, and beef jerky is expensive, and you're like, dang, he's got money, dude. and I just like eating out of a peanut butter jar, just hanging in there. But also like just really good times. Sleeping in the van, and not even sometimes when we couldn't afford a hotel, it was like, no, you're just playing. Like we played Rex Theater in Pittsburgh and went to go get tacos, and then the label was like, hey, you're playing WGN Morning News in Chicago at 8 a.m. and we're just eating tacos. We're like, how long does it take to get to Chicago? And they're like, 8 hours. So we're like, all right, yeah, let's pack it up. So a lot of times you're just so busy, you don't even really have time to go sleep. Yeah.
Interesting. How about you, Joe?
Yeah.
Give me some lows from the early days.
I think for looking back on it, is that one, before I say this, like, I think the lows, though, turn out to make the highs that much sweeter, but also at first the lows seem like they hurt a lot, but in the end they're actually they build you up, right? And so I would say lows are actually lessons that just life teaches you. My dad always says life's the best teacher, and it's true. But I think a low for me was when we're, like Ryan was saying, we are grinding, we're in the van. It's we called it the Skinny Britches tour. And so we're just trying our best to make it out there. We always just take a bet saying to see who's going to cry the first, right? Who are we going to catch, behind the corner of the venue crying or something. But I think a low for me was, and it's probably really deep, is when our first lead guitarist left the band. And because it was like, and we still keep in contact with him. I actually talked to him like 2 weeks ago. Love the guy. And we were at his wedding too, which is really cool. But I think for me, it's that realization as that art, it's a hard thing to do, right? And there's going to be sacrifices. There's going to be things, and not that the sacrifices are bad, but everybody can't keep doing the same amount of sacrifices. And I think that's something that was a realization because, I love like the show, like a Band of Brothers, right? And I'm like, man, these guys are in the trenches together. They're all, they're not leaving. The only way they're leaving is in a body bag, right? Or they're, I probably shouldn't have said that, but, that's not how the band is. So no one's leaving in a body bag. But with that, it's that sense of camaraderie, right? That sense of like, you're in it together. And I think that really just hurt because it was like, I was like, man, I thought this guy was in it to win it, right? And again, my definition of success was totally different back then than it is now. And so that made it just a low point for me because I was like, man, these guys, we've been grinding it out. And there hasn't been what we would say anything to show for it. But looking back on it, there was plenty to show for it. We got to travel the country. We got to go to Canada, right? Now that's a long drive to drive from Austin to Canada. They were confused when we were coming across the border and coming back, but they searched us for stuff. But anyways, but those were the highs. The times that we thought were the lows were the highs. Like I can look back on that and be like, man, yeah, I remember Ryan getting a whole bunch of rolls out of a Chinese buffet place and stuffing them in his pocket so that he could have food for the next day.
Power balls.
He called them power balls. That was so messed up.
And then y'all trying to get on my power balls.
Yeah. You get hungry.
It's a good idea.
You get hungry. But those kind of things are like, now looking back on it, is like, there's some of my highest points in life. Having a mortgage is not a high point. It's just a thing. Right. But my highest points are the lows and the people I got to spend it with. And so, yeah, I would say one to all our fans and new fans that are going to be joining the Bear Club. I like that, right? Coin that. But to all our fans, one, we're just so thankful that you guys have, just stood the test of time with us and have waited sometimes longer than others to hear new music. But we always appreciate just the support that you guys have shown. But yeah, for Sunday afternoon, we are super excited for you guys to listen to this. And with that, one thing I can promise and guarantee is that we did put our all into it. And we hope that this song is just something that you guys treasure and that you guys listen to for years to come. So I hope you guys check it out on June 1st.
in addition to that, got a show on Friday at Empire at 8 p.m. And yeah, I think this is a song. It doesn't sound like anything else we've ever done, which I think goes back to like, we try and figure out how a certain song makes us feel. So we're not really trying to fit the catalog every time we write something new. But yeah, it's called Sunday Afternoon. And does it mention Sunday afternoon ever in the lyrics?
No, but that's the beauty of it.
That's what's cool. Yeah. And it comes out on June 1st on a Sunday afternoon. So, got that. And the stop motion music video is going to come out that same day. And yeah, just shout out to everyone that's still listening to us. It's awesome to read the YouTube comments where I don't know, I read one yesterday that was like, who's still here in 2025? And it's like this fan that's been following us since 2016. It's really cool. And that if we didn't have that, I don't know if we would have stuck with this for this long.